A scary light in the house. The story was told by a friend of my acquaintance at work that happened to him that week. I should have known something was wrong from the moment the lights began flickering. It wasn't subtle either. 1 second the entire apartment was bathed in the soft, warm glow of the overhead bulbs, and the next they blinked off, plunging everything into sudden darkness. I sat there for a moment, staring at my reflection in the now black TV screen, wondering if it was just a power surge. But then they came back on, and off again. At first, I told myself it was nothing. It had been a long day at work and my mind was playing tricks on me. The maintenance guy had been in the building earlier, so maybe there was some residual issue with the electrical wiring. Still, when the lights started flickering in a strange rhythm, a pattern, almost, I felt a cold sweat begin to form along the back of my neck. Click, clack. It was deliberate, like someone was flipping a switch. Forcing myself to breathe, I tried to ignore it, focusing on the mundane sounds of the city outside. The hum of traffic, the occasional blare of a horn, the distant murmur of voices on the street below. But no matter how hard I tried, my attention kept drifting back to the lights. They weren't behaving randomly anymore. There was a pause, precise and calculated, before they would blink off then flicker back to life. I glanced toward the hallway. The far end was swallowed by shadows, the lights barely penetrating the darkness. My bedroom door loomed in the distance like a gaping mouth. That hallway always unnerved me at night, stretching longer than it should, like it was bending to accommodate something unseen. Suddenly, the kitchen light, just beyond the hallway, clicked off. That was enough to break my trance. Okay, I muttered to myself, standing up too quickly, the blood rushing to my head. That's it. I'm calling maintenance. But before I could reach my phone, the light above me shut off. For several seconds, I was enveloped in total darkness. And then, from the far end of the hallway, a dim light flickered on. Just the bathroom light, barely illuminating the outline of the door. Something was there. I froze, my breath catching in my throat as my eyes locked onto the dimly lit silhouette of a person. Not moving, just standing there, partially obscured by the doorway as if they were waiting for me to notice them. They weren't close enough to make out any features, but I knew someone was there. The way the shadows clung to the figure, how still it stood, it wasn't natural. The lights flickered again, but this time they stayed off for several seconds longer. When they finally blinked back to life, the figure was gone. I don't know how long I stood there, staring down the hallway, my legs trembling beneath me. The cold realization that I was not alone gripped me harder than the sudden drop in temperature. The apartment was dead silent, too silent. Not even the usual hum of the refrigerator or the ticking of the old clock on the wall reached my ears. Only the faint buzz of the remaining lights. I swallowed hard, trying to rationalize it. It's nothing, I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. You're just seeing things. You're tired. But I didn't believe it. With trembling hands, I reached for the flashlight app on my phone, my thumb hovering over the screen. I needed to check. I had to know what, or who I saw. Maybe it was a trick of the light, some weird reflection, but my gut twisted. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had been standing there wasn't just a trick of my imagination. It was waiting. Gathering what little courage I had left, I turned on the flashlight and slowly made my way toward the hallway. Each step felt heavier than the last, the silence thickening around me, pressing in from all sides. The bathroom door was only about 10 feet away, but it felt like miles. My breathing echoed unnaturally loud in the oppressive quiet. When I reached the bathroom door, I stood there, the flashlight trembling in my grip. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I forced myself to lean forward, just enough to peek around the doorframe. The bathroom was empty. But the lights flickered again, and in the brief moment before everything went dark, I saw it. Something moved at the far end of the hallway, slipping into the shadows. The silence in the apartment was suffocating, broken only by the pounding of my heartbeat in my ears. I stood there, gripping the edge of the bathroom doorframe, my flashlight's beam darting across the floor like it was searching for an exit I couldn't see. The lights were still flickering, barely alive, and that same strange rhythm had returned, tapping against my nerves like a ticking bomb. I swallowed hard, forcing down the rising panic that was clawing its way up my throat. Whatever I saw move at the end of the hallway was still out there. Waiting. Watching. I had to move. Staying frozen in the hallway felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting for something to shove me over. With a shaky breath, I pulled myself back into the hallway, sweeping the flashlight across the walls. My apartment wasn't big, just a small 2-bedroom space, but right now, it felt impossibly vast, like the darkness had stretched everything out, warping it. Shadows seemed to shift in the corners of my vision, twisting and bending unnaturally as if they were hiding something. No, someone. I shook the thought away. It's your mind playing tricks on you. Focus. Just check the apartment. Prove to yourself it's all in your head. Room by room I began my search. First, the living room. The soft leather of the couch gleamed under the beam of my flashlight. The coffee table stood untouched, the remote still neatly placed where I had left it. Nothing out of place. I crouched low, my fingers brushing against the cold hardwood floor as I looked under the couch. Nothing but dust bunnies and a stray magazine. No one hiding. But the air felt wrong, heavy like it was pressing down on me. My skin prickled as if I were being watched. I stood and moved toward the kitchen. The fridge hummed back to life, but its familiar drone only added to the growing unease. I ran the light across the counters, the sink, and then the pantry door. I stared at it for a moment, heart pounding in my chest. I hadn't opened it in days. Slowly, I approached and, with one hand still holding the flashlight, yanked the door open. Nothing. I exhaled a shaky breath, the tension easing slightly. And then the phone rang. The shrill sound tore through the silence, making me jump so violently that I dropped the flashlight. It clattered to the floor, rolling under the kitchen table, leaving me momentarily bathed in darkness. My breath caught in my throat as I scrambled to grab it, the phone's ringing echoing around the apartment, somehow louder than it should have been. The old landline. I hadn't used it in years, but there it was, ringing from the small corner table downstairs, where it had sat untouched for months. With a curse, I fumbled for the flashlight and bolted for the stairs. Each step creaked under my weight as I hurried down, my bare feet slapping against the wood. The phone kept ringing, persistent and insistent. I felt a cold sweat dripping down my back, sticking my shirt to my skin as I reached the bottom landing. I snatched up the receiver, pressing it to my ear before even catching my breath. Hello. My voice came out shaky, barely more than a whisper. Silence. I pressed the receiver closer, heart hammering in my chest. Hello. There was a faint crackle on the other end, a static hiss. And then, click. The line went dead. I stared at the phone in disbelief, my pulse racing. For a moment, I thought maybe it had been a wrong number or some kind of prank call. But deep down, I knew better. The static I had heard, it felt intentional, like someone, or something, was listening, waiting for me to respond. And then, as if to mock me, the phone rang again. Only this time it wasn't downstairs. It was coming from the farthest room in the apartment. The room I hadn't even entered yet tonight. The bedroom. My blood ran cold, dread settling into the pit of my stomach. I turned toward the staircase, feeling the weight of the darkness pressing down on me from above. The phone rang again, that same shrill sound piercing the quiet. I forced myself to move, my legs feeling like lead as I climbed the stairs again, the sound of the ringing growing louder with each step. It echoed in the hallway, making the space seem even more suffocating. The light in the hallway flickered, dimming until only a faint glow illuminated the far end. The bedroom door cracked open just enough to see inside. With trembling fingers, I pushed the door the rest of the way open. My bedroom was bathed in darkness, the phone on the bedside table glowing faintly in the gloom. I crossed the room in a daze, my heart beating so loudly I was sure I could hear it in the walls. The phone rang again. I reached for it, hesitating as my hand hovered over the receiver. Something inside me screamed not to pick it up. But I couldn't stop myself. Slowly, I lifted the receiver to my ear. Ashelu? Silence. For what felt like an eternity, there was only silence. And then, in a voice so low I barely registered it as human, I heard someone whisper, "Turn around." My heart stopped. I felt every muscle in my body seize, locking me in place as the words echoed in my skull. Turn around. Slowly, I forced my eyes to move, scanning the room in the reflection of the window ahead of me. There was nothing. But that didn't make the dread any less real. I could feel it, something lurking just behind me, close enough to touch, breathing down my neck. Turn around. The voice was louder this time, harsher. I shut my eyes tight, too terrified to obey, but knowing that I had no choice. My entire body trembled, the cold air wrapping itself around me like a suffocating blanket. And then, against my will, I did it. I turned. I never saw what it was. I only caught a glimpse, a flash of something tall and impossibly thin standing just inches away from me, cloaked in the deep, suffocating shadows of the room. Its eyes, God, its eyes, were black pits, void of any light or life. And then everything went black. The last thing I remember was the sound of the phone slipping from my hand, crashing to the floor with a deafening thud. And then I was gone, plunged into darkness, my mind tumbling into an abyss as I felt myself slip away. Somewhere far away I heard the phone start ringing again.